About 30% of our foods contain these lectins, and 5% of these lectins will actually enter circulation. As I talked about, when you have a little leaky gut and they're kind of slipping through those cells, going right into the bloodstream, directly causing this pro-inflammatory reaction in your body that is then leading to the cascade of events of inflammation and all the illness symptoms that we talked about in the first half. So lectins are a problem because they're sticky molecules. They can bind to the human tissues, especially the intestinal cells. In doing so, they disable cells in the GI tract, keeping them from repairing and rebuilding, leading to erosion of the intestinal barrier. So then you end up with leaky gut, and that's contributing to the development of all these food sensitivities, and then you just go on and on. Then they circulate in the bloodstream, and they bind to any tissue in the body. So then you can have thyroid, pancreatic, joint issues. You have this whole immune system response because the inflammatory response is not specific. It just goes out there and, you can have random things. People who have non-gut related celiac disease, but they have thyroiditis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. They have some other organ inflammation caused from the wheat itself. So lectins are very highly related or involved in the diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis. And they also link to weight gain, fatigue, low energy, heart attacks as well. So a lot of us have these genes, this HLA-DQ2 and HLA-DQ8. 30% of the population have at least one of these genetic markers that predispose them to celiac disease in the first place. So if you have that sort of genetics and then you have the environmental trigger, you don't have to think very hard to say that you are at risk then for developing true celiac disease. Then you add the susceptibility, environmental triggers, like I said, lifestyle choices, nutrient-poor diet, overuse of antibiotics, ibuprofen. The non-steroidal anti-inflammatories are notorious for causing irritation, inflammation, poor absorption in your gut, and people pop that Advil all the time. So then you have the acid blocking agents, which when you decrease the acid in your stomach, you're just letting those foods be unwashed, be unprocessed at the stomach level, when you need to have that acid work on the food to help that digestion and to help police the gut from the get-go of that parasite or that bacteria entering the intestinal tract. If you then remove that acid from the start, you're already impeding digestion. And one of the biggest things that we were doing for the longest time, and even these little babies, was doing Prevacid and doing Zantac and things for reflux. Well, it's funny because I'm doing a board review now for my next set of boards. Every 7 years we have to do this, and it's sort of this pendulum now is swung to the other side, and it said, well, reflux is a totally normal disease of childhood now, and we don't need to do reflux medications. So now it's not recommended anymore that we do any Zantac or any Prevacid on babies because it doesn't work, because now they have declared that it is not an overproduction problem in babies. So they really don't know. What I feel is that keep things in balance, start with probiotics, start with healthy diet, and I think you can prevent a lot of those things. So, but this is a perfect storm, basically, with the super gluten, with all these other environmental factors that are going into creating this inflammatory process that then goes into creating that disease state. The super gluten crosses that leaky gut, gets exposed to the immune system, and that's what triggers this whole inflammatory cascade. The other trap that people get into is gluten-free. If you buy gluten-free, that just means you're buying a bunch of gluten-free, high glycemic load, things that have rice or other things in there that aren't healthy either. So don't get in the trap of just saying you're buying gluten-free cookies and gluten-free pretzels and gluten-free snack foods, because that's still just a healthier junk food. So get in the process or get in the mindset of making food real, making it your own, you know, from scratch, and relying minimally on a lot of the packaged processed foods, whether it's organic or whether it's gluten-free or not gluten-free. You really have to get back to basics and make food real. The other problem we have is that this whole omega-3, omega-6 ratio is really out of whack. We have, you know, this huge change in the types of foods that we have been consuming over time. And it started with fast food restaurants, packaged processed foods, packaged convenience foods, and we've lost, you know, sight of the basics of your fruits and vegetables and your, you know, more of that paleo type of diet we talked about. So that ratio is 25:1 now. Of course, it's tipping the scales to pro-inflammation. So this is, if, you know, in a nutshell also, you know, kind of try to stop and say summary, okay? Summary is we need to do a paleo sort of paleo plus kind of Mediterranean diet without the potatoes, without the wheat, with brown rice is probably okay, but, you know, not the white rice. Multivitamin and mineral supplement or a whole food supplement. You know, I'm a big Juice Plus fan. I know there are lots of other, you know, companies out there that make a dehydrated fruit and vegetable. It's just convenient. If you can't eat that 5 or that 6 to 8 servings in a kid, or that 8 to 15 serving as an adult, if you can't eat that much fruits or vegetables, or you're not juicing, you know, and we really need to eat more greens. We don't need to eat a whole bunch of carrots and a whole bunch of, you know, high glycemic or high carbohydrate load, you know, sweet potatoes and things like that. We really need to eat more greens. And as I showed you on that pie chart, that is the most important part of that pie chart, is that sliver of greens we're not getting. There are companies, I've seen lots of internet resources on, you know, like the Vitamix and being able to juice those things. They have cookbooks out there that tell you how to match one thing with another to decrease the burden of the sugar that's going into your system. You know, I love that type of thing. So definitely get your fruits and vegetables in, concentrate on greens. And if you can't eat enough of it, or you just gag on it, then there's certainly things like Juice Plus. Vitamin D3, you know, is part of the IFM. This is one of the summary slides that I sort of embellished and made my own. Dr. Vasquez was one of the speakers. You know, he mentioned the vitamin D3. D3 is one of those things I use in my practice a lot. In the winter, it's one of our immune boosters that we talk about. His recommendation was that adults start at 4,000 IUs of vitamin D, and this is a daily thing. We are so deficient in vitamin D, and I'll show you a slide in a minute about the benefits of vitamin D. The babies should take 400 to 800, and the American Academy of Pediatrics says that all breastfed babies need to be taking their vitamin D, and they start at 400. We get a little bit higher and say, you know, a lot of these babies are born to mom who's very deficient, so we might as well, you know, boost their levels up as well. And then 2,000 IUs is a good start for vitamin D on a kid, on a young child. You have to do an omega-3 essential fatty acids. You need to get a combination. You could do flax oil, you could do cod liver oil, but you need to do some omega-3. You're going to eat your nuts, you're going to eat your seeds, the pepitos and the chia seeds and the sunflower seeds. Those are all great for you, but some people can't handle some of that fiber, and so they really just need to take it in a flax oil and put it in a smoothie. Coconut oil, great saturated fat. We don't get enough good saturated fats either. So just the good oils in your diet. If you're not going to eat a lot of it in nuts and seeds, you really need to be supplementing it. And probiotics are key to keeping your gut healthy. If you've been on antibiotics before, if you have intestinal issues, if you have allergies, the one thing you could start is just a probiotic. You're probably going to feel a lot better when, you know, you start the gut. If the gut's healthy, then the rest of you kind of falls into place, you know. So a good resource you can write down is Dr. Vasquez has a 5-part nutritional